Every morning at 5:30 a.m. Rain or shine, Paul Golden laced up his sneakers, clipped the leash onto Quincy's collar, and set out on their quiet neighborhood route. But they weren't just taking a stroll, they were on a mission. For 11 years, the pair had delivered newspapers to the residents of Maplewood Grove. Not in the usual way, though. Quincy, Paul's golden retriever, was the real star of the show. With gentle precision, he'd pick up each paper from the end of driveways and trot it right to the front door, dropping it neatly on the welcome mat before looking up at Paul for his next assignment. The neighbors adored them. Mrs. Langley, who lived alone since her husband passed, would sometimes leave a treat for Quincy beside her paper. Old Mr. Harris, who rarely smiled since his stroke, would chuckle as Quincy nudged the paper under his storm door with his nose. The kids on the block called Quincy the furry postman, and some even left handwritten thank you notes in plastic bags for him to deliver back to Paul. But one icy December morning, everything changed. Paul woke up with a fever, his body aching. He never missed a day, but this time, he could barely stand. He sighed, looking at Quincy, who waited eagerly by the door, leash in mouth. "Not today, buddy," Paul croaked. Quincy whined, pawing at the door. Paul shook his head. "The papers can wait." But Quincy didn't listen. He snatched the leash from the hook and dropped it in Paul's lap, then grabbed the canvas bag they used to carry extra papers. His golden eyes were determined. Paul hesitated. Then, with a weak smile, he clipped the leash on. "All right, but just the usual route, no extra houses." Quincy barked once in agreement. Paul bundled up and stepped outside, letting Quincy lead the way. The dog moved with purpose, stopping at each house just as he always did. But this time, Paul didn't have to give commands. Quincy remembered every stop. At Mrs. Langley's, he picked up her paper and carried it to the door. At the Rodriguez house, he nudged the paper under the wreath. And at Mr. Harris, he gave an extra scratch at the door with his paw until the old man opened it, surprised to see Quincy without Paul right behind him. Then Paul's knees buckled. The world spun as he slumped against a lamppost. Quincy was at his side in an instant, barking loudly. Lights flicked on in nearby homes. Doors opened. Within minutes, Mrs. Langley was wrapping Paul in a blanket while Mr. Harris called an ambulance. The Rodriguez kids brought out hot cocoa. And Quincy? He never left Paul's side, resting his head on his owner's lap as if to say, "I've got you." Later, at the hospital, the doctor told Paul he had severe pneumonia. "If you'd waited any longer." He didn't finish the sentence. When Paul returned home a week later, he found his porch covered in get well cards, and a brand new, insulated delivery bag, courtesy of the neighbors. A note read, "For Quincy. So his paws don't get cold while he's saving you."